This is Nicholas Garrett.
Gabriel Fink.
Max Modine.
We are here today to talk about what we would tell our ninth grade selves. This is like advice that ninth graders listening to this could use, or let's get started.
All right. Biggest things for me about like kind of the start of freshman year is that things are a lot easier than like the other years, right? So like freshman year, I didn't develop like the best study habits. It's like a big jump once you get to sophomore and junior year, like the amount you have to study. So like if I were to tell my ninth grade self one thing, it would be like, you got to like get good study habits, start them early on as a ninth grader.
I think that would definitely help would be like just getting friends or teachers or like any sort of person who's at school, getting them to be like either like your study buddy or just like academically available to you so that you can, if you have an assignment with them or if you're in the same classes, you can like bounce ideas off each other or bounce like work off of each other, not like copying, your friend's work or whatever, but just being able to like be there, whether at school or in your own private life. You can consult them in a way.
Mm-hmm.
For me, studying is really hard because I have serious issues focusing, and I haven't really found a way to get around it yet. But one thing that I know in theory can help is a planner. And in senior year, I finally found or came up with a system that works for me and a planner that works for me. So if I could go back in time and tell my ninth grade self something, it would be to pick up this method like straight away.
Yeah.
Like find what works for you.
Yeah, but specifically this method where it's a more complicated planner where it's got like a month view, week views, and day views. And so I can write like events of the month, like days off of school, holidays, vacations, blah, blah, blah. Then the weeks I can write like what homework, like every day in the week I can write like what class, what homework, what ongoing assignments. And then in the daily I can write what I'm doing that day and when.
Yeah, it's like a good like organizational tool.
Yeah, and just in general advice is organization is hard, but it's helpful. So find a method that works for you. Don't just look online or ask someone else and like, what do you do? It really has to click with you, because if it doesn't, if it's not something you like, then you're never going to do it, even if it might be the proven most effective way.
Kind of transitions a lot into like something else I was saying about, you're talking about like trying things, seeing what works for you. As like one thing I would tell myself is just try everything. Like as far as like classes go, my sophomore year I took a class called Intro to Marketing, and I hated it. I didn't like it at all. But I realized like that's just not something that's for me at all. That's not something I really enjoy. You should always be, especially when like you're going to be, signing up for new classes next year, like if you never heard about something, try it. You might really like it. You might find like a passion.
Yeah, and in regards to that, and also academically, is this is the easiest day for the rest of your life. It only gets harder from here. So what you should do to take all the hard classes. Don't go for the normal, boring thing. Don't go for the easy level. If there's an honors option, take it. If there's an AP option, take it. Take the hard classes, do as many hard classes, do as much as you think you can manage, because it can benefit you a lot. If you work extra hard now and do well on AP tests, that can mean that you have to work less hard going into college or wherever and even if you don't, having that education on like a transcript or a resume can definitely help. But more than that, like, since your life gets harder and more complicated and you get more responsibilities, it's better to start soon to try new and difficult things. Basically, take the opportunity to do stuff you haven't done before or challenge yourself in new or greater ways when you don't have so much that you can't really afford to do it.
Sort of the key to that, I think, is like manage what you can do, because one thing that happened to me last year in my sophomore year, like I did take a bunch of AP classes and like they were all very rigorous. And it ended up like I ended up burning myself out and I just like got horrible grades on it. So yeah, do what you can manage. And during senior year, you can also, I mean, it depends on really how your classes have went, in your sophomore year and your junior year. Sorry, I said sophomore year last time. I meant junior year. I was a junior last year. So I took a lot of like hard classes. I kind of ended up flopping. I didn't manage myself well. And so, yeah, take what you can manage. And senior year is a time to take difficult classes, but still keep track of what you can actually do.
Yeah.
Another bit of advice that I would give is that's just really short and simple is get your art credits out of the way fast, because now I'm having to do mine in senior year simply because I just was like, I'll get to it next year for 3 years straight, and now here I am.
Yeah.
One thing I just was kind of thinking about, and you're talking a lot about like AP tests, and if I was in ninth grade self telling myself like taking my first AP class, I would want myself to know it's not the end of the world. Like it really feels like those like 2 weeks leading up to the test where you're just like cramming, it feels like it's like the biggest deal ever. But like the best thing you can do for your success on like those hard tests is just to have like a level head, you know.
One thing Maximo said earlier about sort of like do everything that you can. One thing I'd like to add on to that is participate in clubs if you can, or create your own club, because that is something that I came into my freshman year and I looked around and I saw like that there was a bunch of clubs, and I also saw that there were clubs that like should exist. Like I had an interest in creative writing, so I thought it would be a great idea if there was a creative writing club, but I was too scared to like create the club or form the club. And I would just say if there is an interest that in school that you have, and like the school doesn't reflect that through clubs or after school activities, try to get that going, because it'll help you, and it'll probably, I mean, academically, it looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to add on to what Nicholas just said, participating in clubs and sports looks fantastic on transcripts, but also it's like that's part of high school. Like if you're going to go and all you're going to do is you're going to go there, you're going to go to your classes, easy or hard, and then you're going to go home and have like no interaction, you're not really going to high school. You're more or less going to an education factory, and you might not even get a good education off of it. It's definitely important for the experience, and I would suggest to everyone, including myself, to try a sport. And what I would tell myself is join Ultimate Frisbee sooner, because I really love it. And what I would suggest to other people is that find a sport or some sort of semi-physical activity that you like. Stick with it, even if only because it's healthy and also your brain works better after you exercise. It's good, important, and I definitely think worthwhile, especially like in the early years when there's not as much pressure to join clubs and sports. And if we go back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, like trying the new things, curricular and extracurricular.
Yeah, and then I mean we're talking a lot about like academic stuff, but like one thing I would say is just like coming into ninth grade, there's a lot of like newer students and it's kind of like a whole new school. I just say build good relationships. Like a lot of my friends now are people I met in ninth grade. So you're going to be with these people the next 4 years, like get to know them. And especially we're talking about like joining clubs and stuff, like that's a really great way to like meet people who have similar interests as you. And like, again, like trying new things, just finding something that you like to do. Like that's the next 4 years, you're going to be figuring out who you are as a person, what you like to do. And
Get to bed on time. That's another, I know that's like different, like that's a little bit different than what we were talking about, but I had a crazy sleep schedule in like freshman year, and I'd like go to bed at like 12 a.m. And this was back when like SLP had you wake up. Well, I can't remember the specific start date for school at that time, but it was a lot earlier than around 8. Or I had to wake up at like 6 o'clock. I was running on like 6 hours of sleep most days. You don't want to be sleepy in your first hour or like your last hour of the day. Then make a sleep schedule, whatever that looks like for you. I know that's difficult. For me personally, it was like 11 p.m. or 10 p.m. usually worked for me, but obviously that's just sort of a personal structure that I have going now as a senior.
And maybe going back a little bit to friends, not just integrate yourself with other people, but be the best version of you. Going back, I would definitely change my behavior and be a more admirable version of myself, try to get along more with other people, keep more of my thoughts on the inside, because a lot of the time when I turn my thoughts into words, it would not be good. And another thing making good connections with people, the reason it's important is not just because of friends and all that, because high school gets significantly easier the more people you know. Being on good terms with your teachers means you can get extensions and leniency that you wouldn't normally get. And also, it allows you to get letters of recommendation, which are definitely useful if you want to go to college. In general, it's just more fun to be in class when your teacher feels like your friend.
That's true. I don't really, I don't like that system. I don't like the fact that you kind of have to cozy up in that sense, and you have to be it's good to be an active participant in the school community, but I also see like that, being a grade A student also comes with like a lot of times you're exhausting yourself, or you're spending a lot of like mental energy on school all the time. But yes, like having a good relationship, and some teachers are better than or some teachers are a little more like lenient than others, and a little more friendly than others too. I've had teachers where I thought I've been a really good student, and they didn't seem to kind of reward me for that. Maybe maybe I shouldn't be expecting a reward, but it kind of seemed, it depends on who you have, and you whatever teacher you have, you should not think that you're down and out for the rest of the year because one teacher one quarter was not particularly like happy with you.
Yeah, and to clarify, I'm not saying that you have to like cozy up or be a teacher's pet to your teachers, and especially not for grades. I'm saying that it's worth doing it because on good terms with your teacher can mean at least that that there's no discord.
All right, I think that is it.
That's all the time we've got.
Thank you for listening. This has been advice we'd give to our ninth grade selves.